The hall was full when Elena Voss walked to the center of the stone floor. Every eye in the Ashwood pack was on her, but she felt like the only person in the room who did not know what was about to happen. The presentation ceremony was supposed to be simple. Every wolf who turned 20 was called before the Alpha King to be marked as a true member of the pack. Most of them walked in, bowed, and walked out again within a minute. Nobody paid attention to those minutes. Nobody remembered them. Elena knew, even before she reached the front of the hall, that her minute would be different. She did not have a shift scar on her wrist like the others. She did not have the golden shine in her eyes that came from a strong wolf living just under the skin. She was thin, quiet, and pale, and she had spent her whole life being told, gently or not so gently, that she was not much of a wolf at all. King Draven Ashwood sat on the raised chair at the front of the hall. He was tall, broad, and calm in the way that powerful men are calm, like nothing in the room could touch him. When Elena stopped in front of him, he looked at her for a long moment, not with curiosity, not even with dislike. With nothing at all, the way you look at a chair you are about to move out of your way. "Name," he said. "Elena Voss," she answered. Her voice did not shake, though her hands did. He tilted his head slightly, as if listening for something under her words. Then his eyes changed, not gently. Something in him locked into place, the way a key turns in an old door. She was his mate. She could see it settle over his face like a shadow crossing a wall. The whole hall could see it too. For a moment, nobody moved. In the old stories, this was the part where the Alpha stood up, took his mate's hand, and the whole pack cheered. Elena had heard those stories her whole life. She had never believed, not once, that they were about her, but some small foolish part of her still hoped they might be. Draven did not stand up. He looked at her for a long moment, and then he said, in a voice that carried to every corner of the silent hall, "I refuse this bond." There was a sound in the room, like a held breath being let go all at once. A few people gasped. Someone near the back actually laughed, quickly, and then went quiet when they realized how the sound landed. Elena felt her face grow hot, then cold. She did not cry. She had promised herself a long time ago that she would never cry in front of people who thought she was too weak to matter. "I understand," she said, and her voice barely shook at all. She turned and walked out of the hall, and nobody stopped her. That night, Elena packed one bag. She did not have much to take: a few clothes, a photograph of her mother, a small knife her father had given her before he died. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed in the small house at the edge of Ashwood territory and thought about her choices. She could stay. She could live quietly at the edge of the pack, the woman the king had rejected in front of everyone, and spend the rest of her life being pitied. Or she could leave. She chose to leave before the sun came up. The border between Ashwood territory and Kestrel territory was not far, but it might as well have been another world. The two packs had never been friendly. Ashwood was old and proud. Kestrel was smaller, newer, built by wolves who had left larger packs because they wanted something different, a place where strength was earned, not given by blood or birth. Elena walked for most of the day before she reached the Kestrel border post. 2 guards stopped her. She told them her name, and she watched the moment when they realized who she was. The mate the Alpha King of Ashwood had refused in front of his whole pack. News like that traveled fast, even between rival packs. She expected them to turn her away. Instead, one of them said, "Beta Rowan will want to see this himself," and led her inside. Rowan Kestrel was the Kestrel pack's beta commander, and he was nothing like Draven. Where Draven was calm in the way of someone who never had to try, Rowan was calm in the way of someone who had tried very hard, for a very long time, and had learned to be still because of it. He was not soft. His hands were rough with scars from years of training, but when he looked at Elena, he did not look at her the way Draven had, like a problem or a disappointment. He looked at her the way you look at someone you are trying to understand. "You walked here alone," he said. It was not a question. "I didn't have anyone to walk with," Elena answered. Rowan studied her for a long moment. Then he said something that Elena would remember for the rest of her life. "Everyone in Ashwood saw a weak wolf today. I'd like to know what you actually are, before I decide what anyone else says about you is true." He offered her a place in the pack, not out of pity, and not because of who had rejected her. He made that very clear. He offered it because he wanted to see, for himself, what she could become. The next months were the hardest of Elena's life, and also, in a strange way, the best. Kestrel Pack trained its members hard, and nobody made exceptions for Elena, just because of what had happened at Ashwood. Rowan put her through drills every morning, drills that left her arms shaking and her legs sore for days. At first, she was slow. She fell more than she stood. Other trainees, stronger and faster, ran circles around her in the sparring ring. She did not quit. Something in her, some small, stubborn thing that had been quietly burning under all those years of being told she was not enough, refused to let her stop. Every time she fell in the ring, she got back up. Every time someone doubted her, she trained harder the next day, until doubt started to look, on their faces, a little more like surprise. Rowan noticed. He never said much about it directly, but he started sparring with her himself, instead of leaving her with the other trainees. He was patient, in a way that did not feel like pity. He corrected her mistakes without making her feel small for making them. Slowly, without either of them talking about it, something else began to grow between the training and the drills. A quiet kind of trust, and then something warmer than trust. Elena's wolf, silent inside her for her whole life, began to stir. It happened first as a small thing, a flicker of heat under her skin during a hard sparring match, a sharpening of her senses she had never felt before. She told no one at first, afraid it would disappear the moment she spoke of it, like a flame too fragile to survive a breath of air. But it did not disappear. It grew. 6 months after she arrived at Kestrel, the pack held its yearly trials, a test of strength and skill that decided who would be recognized as full warriors of the pack. Elena entered without much confidence, mostly because Rowan told her she was ready, and by then, she trusted his judgment more than her own doubts. She won her early matches by careful footwork and stubborn will, more than raw strength. But in the final match, facing one of the strongest young fighters in the pack, something inside her broke open. Her wolf came forward for the first time in her life, not weak, not small, but sure and steady, like something that had simply been waiting for a body strong enough and safe enough to hold it. She felt her senses sharpen, her strength double, her mind grow calm and clear in the middle of the fight. She won the match, and when it ended, the whole training ground had gone quiet with surprise. Rowan stood at the edge of the ring, and though he said nothing out loud, the look on his face said everything. Elena had never seen anyone look at her like that before, like she was exactly, perfectly enough. That night, the Kestrel Pack held a small ceremony to welcome its newest full warriors. Elena stood in the firelight with her head high, wearing the plain gray cloak of a Kestrel fighter, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere completely. It was in the middle of that ceremony that King Draven Ashwood arrived. He came without an escort, which was strange for an alpha king crossing into rival territory. He stood at the edge of the firelight, and the whole gathering went quiet at the sight of him. Rowan stepped forward first, his body angled slightly in front of Elena, though he did not touch her or try to hide her. "You are not welcome here," Rowan said, calm but firm. "I know," Draven answered. His eyes had not left Elena since he arrived. "I only need a few minutes." Elena stepped past Rowan before he could argue. She was not the same woman who had walked out of the Ashwood Hall 6 months earlier, and she wanted Draven to see that clearly. "You have 30 seconds, she said. Draven looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked uncertain. "The bond didn't break when I refused it," he said. "It doesn't work that way. It only goes quiet. Mine hasn't been quiet at all. My wolf has been calling for you every night since you left." Elena felt something twist inside her chest, but it was not the ache she might have felt 6 months ago. It was something closer to disbelief. "You had your 30 seconds in front of your whole pack," she said quietly. "You used them to throw me away." "I was wrong," Draven said. "I know that now. I'm asking you to come back." For a moment, the old hall in Ashwood flickered behind her eyes, the silence after his refusal, the laughter she had heard from somewhere near the back, the long walk out alone. She had spent 6 months turning that memory into fuel instead of pain. She was not going to let it become anything else now. "I don't hate you anymore," she said, and she meant it. "But I stopped needing you to want me a long time ago. I found people who did, without me having to prove anything first. She looked back once at the fire, at Rowan standing near it, at the pack that had rebuilt her out of nothing but patience and a fair chance. Then she looked at Draven one last time. I already have a pack, she said. I already have a home. You had every chance to be part of that, and you chose not to be, in front of everyone who mattered. I'm not going to unchoose the people who didn't make that same mistake. She turned and walked back toward the fire, back toward Rowan, back toward the warmth of a place that had never once made her feel like a disappointment. Behind her, she heard it, a long, low howl breaking out of Draven's chest, carried out over the dark trees toward the ashwood border. It was the sound of a wolf finally understanding what it had lost, far too late to do anything about it. Elena did not turn around. She had spent her whole life being told she was not enough. She had needed exactly one pack, one beta, and one fair chance to prove that the people who said so had simply never bothered to look closely enough. Now she stood in the firelight of a home she had chosen for herself, surrounded by people who had never asked her to be anything other than what she already was. The howl faded into the night behind her. Elena did not look back, and for the first time in her life, she did not need to.